So here's the most interesting thing that I found out as I'm working my way still out through this recovery. We all know that our fatigue is down to the virus. We don't have to have it proved to us. We know that we were fine before we caught the virus, and we know that we were not fine after. So we all know that's the case. And that's what confused me so much when it was the expression of my unresolved emotions that started to relieve the fatigue. But I also still viscerally knew that this was down to the virus in one way or another. Scientists have defined two different types of fatigue. One, as we would expect, is very much to do with the viral exposure. They haven't really come up with any great solutions as yet, although I did find one that I'll tell you about a little bit later. But what they have defined is this strange way that we're getting fatigue that is to do with our emotions. And I wanted to talk to you about that first before I go on to the thing that I found for the other side. And what the scientists are calling it is mitochondrial allostatic load, in short, MAL. And it's very much to do with how the body handles stress long term. And this is why what I did with my emotions worked so well, because the major thing that was bothering me was the fact that I had not expressed my anger about many, many, many things in my life. I was proud of myself for being a very calm person. It's the absolute irony of it. I was proud of the thing that was making me ill. And so that day, when I came home from my dog walk, and I was thinking, if I had told this entire story, the full arc, to a good friend of mine, she would absolutely say to me, "No, come on now, Rachel, aren't you even a little bit angry?" And that was it. That was the day when I thought, of course, where is the anger? It's almost too calm. And there was nobody else home, and I trundled into my son's room, pulled his boxing thingy out into the middle of the room, and then just let rip on it for 5 minutes. And as I was punching away and visualizing all of the things that I was angry at, and looking at them in the past tense, in other words, I was showing my brain that those things had all happened in the past and that they weren't currently happening now. And I punched and I punched, and I remember thinking that I would be really paying for the fact that I had done this session, that I expected not to be able to cook my dinner, that I expected to be on the sofa for the rest of the evening. But I thought, whatever it is, this feels so good, I'm not stopping until I am done. I don't care what I have to pay. This is it. I'm putting my immediate need to express all of this anger ahead of my worry about pacing. And I just want to say, pacing is really important. I still pace, and don't be flippant when it comes to pacing. It's the biggest mistake that we all make. It was such an important part of my recovery. I really had to pace very gradually up. I avoid any kind of spike in order to avoid this, because when you have a spike, you interrupt the upward flow. I'll talk about that another time, so I digress. Where was I? Yeah, so there I was punching away, and I fully expected to pay for it, but I didn't. I didn't pay for it. I went into the kitchen after a little while and I made myself some dinner. And normally, when I was doing the dinner at that point, I'd have to do a little bit and then come and sit down, and then do a little bit and come and sit down. And that was an everyday occurrence at that point, that I had to do it that way. And that didn't happen. And I finished cooking my dinner. I brought it into the lounge here and I sat down and I ate it. And I thought, I'm still not tired. I cleared away my plate. Normally it would languish in front of me for hours because I'd be like, oh, I have to go. And that was the level of the fatigue that I had. And I didn't. I tidied up my plate. I went into the kitchen. I tidied up the post-dinner mess, which I had never done in years until the next day, for a very long time. And then I came back and sat down on the sofa and I watched some telly and I went to bed and I felt good. And I slept quite well that night. In the way, what I mean was I woke up in the morning and I felt refreshed. Not in a life-changing kind of way, but much better than normal, put it that way. And so as the time went on, for a good 3 weeks, that absolutely stuck. And I started to notice that if I got stressed, the fatigue would come back. And this is again this mitochondrial allostatic load. I should go back to that. So we were not designed to be stressed for a very long time. We were designed to be stressed for a little bit whilst we're hunting or running away from something or fighting over a mate. That's our animal body. This is what we evolved for, or what we were created for, depending on how you want to think about it. But we are a spiritual being, but we are living in an animal body. And we need to work within the constraints of that. And modern life is designed for long-term stress, because what happens at the end of it is your nervous system gets switched on permanently into a fight or flight level, and your hormonal panel changes quite considerably, and your immune system just goes and you find yourself in a position where your body just breaks down and stops working, because the cortisol has been so high for so long, because the body needs to come out of fight or flight for long periods of time in order to heal. Now, this is a very, very important point. If you spend all of your time in a high beta state, that is a stressed brainwave level. We go up to sort of low beta when we're working, when we're maybe driving. But say you're driving on a busy road, you're in kind of mid to high beta. But if you are long-term stressed, let's say that you've had an adverse childhood or you've lived through a narcissistically abusive relationship, then your body would have been in fight or flight for such a long time. And there are automated healing processes that occur in our bodies when we sleep deeply. And when we spend most of the day in very high beta, we find it very hard to go down into that deep healing sleep that we need every single night. And that is why you go to sleep, you sleep for a very, very long time, but you wake up like you've had 2 hours tops. You just don't feel good. Your brain is foggy, your body aches all over, your tendons are all tight. Just stepping onto the floor and putting pressure on your ankles can be very painful. And that still happens to me now when I get the inflammation comes up because of the spike protein, but not in the way that it used to. Oh, anyway, so we're just not designed to be in that kind of level of stress for that long, for all of those reasons. It interferes with sleep, it interferes with your average brainwave state, it interferes with healing, it interferes with your hormones. It's just all bad. And it puts you into this state of mitochondrial allostatic load. And that is the half of the fatigue in the chronic fatigue spectrum that comes from stress. Now, the second part of it is viral exposure. And many of us remember having glandular fever or mono when we were young. And we all remember how incredibly tired we were when that happened. And that is exactly what happens with COVID as well. It's actually the exposure to the virus that's caused this incredible fatigue. The best way that I can explain it is that even though there's no blood test yet for long COVID, the virus is still persisting. And what I found out is that there are these little receptors that the spike protein goes into. And this is now going back to the thing that I found out for this side of thing. So the spike proteins go into these receptors. I can't remember the name of them. I'll put them up on the screen. And it occupies these spaces within the receptors. And because of that, the immune system can't destroy them, and they affect you via the receptors. It triggers off inflammation, it activates your nervous system, and it makes you incredibly tired. Now, one of the ways that you can get the spike protein out of these receptors is nicotine. And I think on some level I knew that because I've been an on and off smoker my entire life. I always seem to feel a lot better during those periods. But there does come a point, and I am not advocating smoking or vaping or anything like that. I am absolutely sure that some of my breathing problems are down to the number of years that I smoked. I am cigarette and vaping injured for sure. I'm not advocating this. What I am advocating is talking to your doctor about nicotine patches, because nicotine actually occupies the space to prevent the spike protein from getting in. And what I'm really interested in the idea of as well is because they're no longer sitting in those receptors and in use, as long as I keep loading my body with nicotine, that my body has an opportunity to kill the virus. But that is a working theory for me at the moment. So I'm really excited about that. There are things that have happened since I started using the nicotine patches that are absolutely amazing. And the most noticeable thing is that I had terrible trouble with my teeth. My gums went completely grey, really grey. And that meant that the blood supply was not getting to my mouth. And I lost a tooth, and I ended up with a couple of root canals as well. And I had to pay for regular teeth maintenance in order to make sure that things didn't get worse. But the amazing thing is that as soon as I started using the patches on a regular basis, my gums started to pink up again. My hygienist remarked on it, and I told her what I thought had happened, and she said, "Well, that's just amazing. I can't believe the difference. Your gums are growing back," she said. And so I would be very interested to learn if anybody else has had this experience. If you'd had terrible dental problems before, and then suddenly your gums started pinking up and things started turning around, I would love to hear whether or not that was just me, because it can't be a coincidence. So yeah, comment below if any of this has happened to you. We'd love to hear from any of your experience of what's going on and how you are doing. I know that there are still a good number of people like me who caught it right at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020 and who are still experiencing the effects. And so anything that we can do for each other would be fantastic. The bottom line is that I'm still affected by the spike protein side of fatigue. So, for example, a month or so ago, I went into town with my kids to shop for a birthday present for their stepmother. And we were there for 2 hours, and town was incredibly busy. And I did okay, but I was in absolute agony by the end of it. But the fatigue hit me like a ton of bricks. And so that was a Saturday, and I didn't manage to get back to work until Thursday. The following Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were almost bedbound. I was doing absolute bare minimum, feeding people and leaving everything else to fester. Luckily, I didn't have any appointments that week. I'm so happy to be where I am now. Where I was 2, 3 years ago, I was practically bedbound the whole time. I am still limited. I've had to change my work. I work completely from home now, very flexibly, and it's working for me. I can't work full time. That is difficult right now, the way things are with money in terms of I'm a single mom and I have two wonderful children, and it's hard to work very part time. It's still financially affecting me as well, which is a shame. But I have an experiment coming up which I intend to document, and I've come up with a way to mobilize and destroy the spike protein. And it's a theory, and I'm having to go to my doctor to talk to them about it to see if they're happy for me to do it. And so I'll get back to you on whether or not I can do it. But I feel really positive about it. It's well researched. There's a clinical study behind almost every decision I'm making. And there's no doctor at the moment who can tell me for sure whether this would work or not. This isn't a protocol that I've heard of happening over here, and certainly not on the NHS. So my main problem right now is that I still have the spike protein in my body, and I do believe that the last bit that I need to do is to get rid of it. That's what I'm going to try. So, if you would like to stay in touch, I've put together a little PDF document about how I recovered. It's nothing fancy and it's free, and I've put a link in the description where you can download it. There's a little Google form, and then it'll go out to you. And then whenever I post another video, as I'm doing this experiment, then you'll get an email from me to say I'm posting today. Here's the link to my vid. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm very happy that I am where I am, and I still want to share the rest of my journey with you and the experiment that I'm about to do. I'm so excited. All right, okay, bye bye.